Hello everybody, welcome back to our second session of the PK classes that I'm going to be hosting over the next 2 to 2.5 weeks. For those of you that don't know, my name is Sara Kelly. I am Mirabella Beauty's National Education Manager and in-house makeup artist and esthetician. So what we're doing, if you missed the video yesterday, is that I am going to be breaking down the entire Mirabella line into small little segments so that the information is easier for you guys to digest. So we're not throwing a bunch of stuff at you at one time. And that way you're also able to answer or ask questions and we can answer those for you. So I am obviously at home like a lot of you still are. So I apologize if my cats jump on the bed and cause a little bit of a ruckus. They've been crazy today, so apologizing in advance for that. So what we're going to be covering today are our application tools. So the video I did yesterday was all about prepping the skin and getting it in optimal condition to then apply makeup. I like to do it in that order so that if you're following along and you're watching these videos maybe while you're doing your own application, once you put on all of your prep products, you have a little bit of time for that to absorb while we cover the tools. So if you missed that video, definitely scroll down in the feed. You'll be able to find it. Feel free to ask questions on it should you have it. We have some staff members and then myself that get on and answer those questions for you guys. So I'm going to dive right in today. Like I said, we're talking about tools. So the first thing I'm going to cover are our brushes. Our brushes are really fantastic. If you've never worked with them, I highly, highly recommend them. We worked really hard to make brushes that are super high quality, that will perform, and that will last you a really long time if you take care of them properly. So the first thing I'm going to show you is our Pro brush set here. So it does come in this cool little red roll. So it has little snaps on the side. You can take it off, and then it comes with all of these brushes. So I'm going to go through these brushes one by one just to give you guys a little bit more information than what we've put out there in the past. I get a lot of questions about what brush to use for what products. So I want to go ahead and cover all of that for you. So there are 7 brushes in here. One of them is dual-ended, so you get 8 different tools in the set. This set retails for $96. So this is a super awesome deal considering everything you get in the set. So first thing I want to show you, all of our brushes have this really pretty aluminum handle here. And so if you can tell, I don't know if you can see here. Okay, so see the little clamp right here? When you're looking at good makeup brushes, you want to sort of see that little dent. That means that this has been clamped. So you're going to have little to no fallout here if this is clamped really well. In addition, our brushes are weighted, which is awesome. So whether you're a consumer or whether you're a pro artist, having a brush that's a little bit heavier in the hand means that you're going to have a little bit more control. So some of you have probably worked with brushes that have wood handles before, and while the bristles might perform okay, sometimes they're just a little too light. So especially when you're doing detailed work on the eye, if your brush isn't weighted enough, you won't feel like you have enough control when you're moving your hand and you're trying to blend colors and things like that. So all of our brushes do have a weight in them. They feel nice and heavy. Another thing I want to mention is the hair. So a lot of them will have the black hair that you can see here. We have a couple that are white, and I'll get to those, but they are all synthetic. So one reason for that, we just really try to steer clear of using any animal byproducts when possible. And so that means getting away from natural bristles in the brushes. Not to mention, this is a super high quality synthetic, which means that it's going to apply liquids, creams, powders beautifully. Back in the day when you used to use synthetic brushes, sometimes they might not blend shadows really well. Sometimes they were a little too plasticky and stiff to work well with creams or liquids. But this hair really works well with all formulations. And they're super duper soft. If you have never felt one of our brushes, I highly recommend going into the Cosmoprof store once they open back up, or even just investing in a set, you're going to love how they feel. Super, super soft. Clients comment on it all the time because they feel really great on the face. So that is a little rundown about the quality of the brushes. So now I'm going to get into the brushes that come in this pro set. So this one that I've been holding is the first brush I want to talk about. This is our dual finish blush and powder brush. So you guys can see here it has a little slant to it. And then, sorry, my paint back there is dark, so it's hard to see. The bristles are really densely packed. This guy is really great for applying powder all over the face, blush, bronzers, contour colors. But this I really, really love when I'm working on the cheek area. Because it has that slant, it's perfect to get into the contours of the face, even kind of around the forehead. And then it doesn't lay too much product on, which I think is sometimes a problem when you're, contouring or laying bronzer on. Sometimes with a brush that's a little bit smaller on the head, the color is too concentrated, right? And then it takes a long time to blend out. So using something a little bit fuller like this is really nice. A little tip on this guy, I like to come in and pinch to make this a little bit skinnier, if that makes sense. And then really get into that cheekbone, okay? So even if you're working around the jaw with some contour color or contouring around the face, if you pinch this, it's going to lay the color on really nicely, and then it won't get too wide on the face, if that makes sense. If you want to keep the color concentrated to a thinner space on the face, just pinch your bristles. So this really is a do-it-all brush, and it does come in the Pro set. Okay. So the next brush I want to talk about out of this set is the Sculpting Foundation and Contour Brush. That's this one. So it has a little bit of an angle on it too, as you can see, but it's a little bit more round, right? Okay, so this is one of our best-selling brushes. It really is phenomenal for foundation. And in particular, our Invincible Foundation, which I will talk about later in a different video. So this, just like the brush I just mentioned, bristles are really, really densely packed. What this is going to be is a stipple brush. So again, we'll talk about this on the day I talk about complexion products. But when you are applying foundation or even concealer, or if you're doing a cream contour or something like that, and maybe you want a lot of coverage, or maybe you have scarring or pigment or something like that to cover, the last thing you want to do is lay color on the face or foundation on the face and then buff it all around, right? I know that that's what you see a lot of artists do sometimes on YouTube or Instagram. And if you're going for a light coverage or you have perfect skin, that is a totally fine technique. However, if you're trying to get really nice coverage, what you want to do is stipple. So you're kind of bouncing the brush like this, okay? So for those of you that are beauty blender addicts or really swear by egg-shaped sponges, first of all, you need to make sure you're washing those all the time. You need to make sure you're never using them on multiple clients ever. So that's where this brush comes in. I have weaned many, many people off of the egg-shaped application sponges by giving them this brush, okay? Because it is so dense, it acts the same way that those sponges do. So you're going to use this to stipple, like I said. Of course, around the edges of the face, you can come in and buff to blend that edge really nicely. But this is going to lay the product exactly where you want it. So it's not going to shift it around on the skin. I mean, that's the goal, right? When we're doing our complexion, is to lay the product where we want it so we get the coverage that we want. So this is really going to help give you that very nice airbrushed finish. This works great with any of our foundation formulas, but it was a brush that we created to go specifically with the Invincible Foundation. So keep that in mind for when we get to complexion products later this week. Okay, so Sculpting Foundation and Contour Brush. I definitely recommend this if you invest in any of our concealers, foundations, anything like that, okay? And again, that does come in the red set. All right, next brush I'm going to talk about is our fan brush. So this is a big boy. I do love it because it's so big, because it's very easy to cover a wide area of the face in one swoop, right? So I use this in particular to highlight the face. Sometimes I will use it to contour a little if I'm doing just a very light contour, or if I'm doing bronzer, to really just kind of work it around the edges of the face, the cheeks, to kind of warm up the complexion. Since it is wide, it makes for a very fast application. Just like the others, it has that really silky smooth synthetic hair, and then the handle is weighted so it feels nice and heavy. Okay. Next one, we are going to talk about the Pro Eye Blender. That is this guy right here. So it is, mine's a little, I need to fluff it up there. It is round, and then again, it is densely packed. So this brush is really great, especially for those of you that maybe want to try doing this kind of darker corner on the outside of the eye, but you don't feel super confident in your skills, or you sometimes have trouble with blending. This brush is really great for that because it's the perfect size that you can come right out here to this outer corner of the eye and lay down color. And then just a little bit of blending, right? So this helps you kind of control where to put that color. You're not getting it too far outside the eye here. You're not getting it too far in. Just right there at the corner, perfect size, blend it a little, and you're good to go. All right. So this one is great. I will say this brush only comes in the red set. You cannot buy it individually, but you can buy all of the other brushes individually. So keep that in mind. If you're just starting out with our brushes, totally purchase the set. Like, this is such a good deal. It has everything you need to do a full face. And then you can add other brushes to it as you go along. Not to mention, I keep kind of holding this up here. So this is the base, this is the top. So when I'm working on myself or on a client, once I use a brush, I put it in the lid so I know that it's dirty, right? So it's separated from my clean brushes. And with everything that's going on right now, that is especially important, even if you're just using these brushes on yourself at home. We need to wash our brushes a lot more often than we think we do. And so separating them this way when you're using them helps you kind of keep straight. Oh, these are the ones I use. These are the ones I use the most. So these are the ones I need to wash, you know, more often. So, okay, we're going to move along. The next brush I want to talk about from the Pro Essential Artist set is our wet dry brush. Okay, so it is a flat brush. The bristles are pretty stiff, and then it's thin this way, if you can see that. This is one of my absolute favorite eye brushes. This brush is great. It is called a wet dry brush because you can use it with dry powder shadows, or you can get our shadows wet and then stipple them on the eye for a really pretty foil effect. So that is something that I will talk about when we get to eye products. I'll go into that a little bit more in depth, but this brush is perfect for that. And because it is a little bit of a stiffer brush, you can also use this for concealer if you want. I have used it for applying lip products before. It's a little big for that depending on the shape of the lips. But this is really great for laying color on your lid here. It's also great if you're highlighting under the brow. Sometimes if you have a fluffy brush and you're blending around, the color sort of flies everywhere. So the lid here under the brow are areas that we kind of just want to lay that color down and have it stay right where we want to put it. There's not a lot of blending that's usually happening there. So that's where this brush comes in handy. And because it is stiff, you get the right amount of product loaded on the brush without it being overwhelming. And then you can just press it onto the eye like this. Okay. So that is the wet dry brush. One of my absolute favorites. I use it all the time on myself, on every client. So definitely a must have for your set. Okay. Next one is the Precision Smudge Brush. So this is what it looks like. It is round, but it has this point on it. So this is a smudge brush, which means that you're able to kind of work color into areas and smudge it around. Because it's stiff though, I really like this one for smudging under the eye. Whether you're applying shadow there or whether you've applied liner and you're trying to smudge that out, this is perfect for that because it has that little point on it. This is also great if you're trying to get to the inner corner of the eye because it's pointed, and you can really target where you want to put that color. And then it's great too for this outer corner of the eye. But because it is so densely packed and it is a little bit of a stiff brush, once you lay the color on here, I do think you need to go in with a different brush and blend it out a little bit, but it is really great for laying that color exactly where you want it. Okay, so that is the Precision Smudge Brush. And then the last one in the Pro Essential Artist set, little red guy, is the dual-ended brush that I talked about earlier. So you have your one slanted end here, and then you have your spoolie. Okay, so this is the dual-ended liner and brow brush. Sorry guys, I have little black marks on mine, so I know that they belong in my Pro Kit. So perfect for applying your brow products. And then you can just brush it out. Obviously, if you're a pro, you're not going to do that on a client. You'd want to use a disposable. But if you're using this at home on yourself, perfect to apply that product and then brush it out so it diffuses your color. This guy is also a brush that can be used wet or dry. So this makes an awesome eyeliner brush as well. Like I said, we'll get to talking about eyeshadows at a later session, but you can use our shadows wet or dry, like I mentioned a minute ago. And so that means that any of them can make really great liners. And this brush is really fantastic for that. So you are able to create a wing if you need to, smudge it into the lash line. I often will use this brush with some of our eye crayons as well, which we'll get to later. So this is definitely a must-have. It's something that I use every day on myself, okay? And so, like I mentioned, all of these brushes come in the red set. It's $96. Great investment if you're just getting started with our brushes, or if you're really looking to invest in new tools for yourself. These are really high-quality brushes, and I think sometimes we just pick up something because, you know, it's cheap. If you're investing in tools, you're going to get a better application. And I think that's something that some people don't think about. You know, we see a brush, maybe the shape looks cool, or maybe, you know, you saw it advertised somewhere, you're like, oh, okay, well, I'll pick that up. The thing is, if you're not buying quality brushes, you're not going to get the finish on your makeup that you want. They are designed to apply makeup differently than inexpensive, cheaply made brushes do. So I highly, highly recommend investing in some new tools if you're really looking to get a really great finish on your makeup. And then, like I said, if you take care of them properly, they will last forever. I mean, some brushes that I've had more than 10 years, you know, if you take care of them well. So I will talk a little bit later about how to care for your brushes once I get through the full set. So that is where I was starting. The 7 brushes, one is dual-ended, so you get 8 tools in the Pro set. So I'm going to move on to our signature brush collection now. So these are brush shapes that have been in the Mirabella line for a long time. The Pro set has only been out 2 or 3 years, so they're a little bit newer as far as the shapes that we're offering. So talking about the signature brush collection, the first one I want to mention is this really pretty guy here. And the signature brush collection has the aluminum handles as well. All of our brushes have these. So you're going to get this really pretty, like, brushed finish, if you guys can see that. Weighted, they feel really nice in the hand. So this is our face blender brush. So you can see here, the bristles are not as densely packed as the brushes I was just showing you. That means this is going to have a little bit more give when you're applying. This is really great for buffing in some of our lighter formula products. So we do have a medium coverage foundation that this works really, really well with. You can just lightly buff that on. This is great for powders as well. I use mine all the time for highlighting or for just laying on a really light wash of color. Okay, so unlike the Sculpting foundation and contour brush that I talked about, if you're trying to get really good coverage, you're trying to cover, you know, scarring or pigment or something, and you're going to stipple with this, it's going to give you that full coverage, that airbrush look. This is going to lay a little bit less product on the skin, but that's okay. We don't all want full coverage all the time. So this is going to give just a really nice light to medium coverage. As you work it on the skin, you will get an airbrush finish with it. It's just not going to be as full coverage as the other brush, okay? But really awesome for powders. Love it, love it, love it for highlighters and bronzers, right? Okay, next one is our blush contour brush. Okay, so it's kind of this ovally shape right here. You can see that. Again, same gorgeous handle. This is the perfect size for laying blush on the face. So whether, you know, you hold it this way or up and down like this is the perfect size for putting blush on the face, okay? It's not so big around in diameter that it's blowing the face out with blush. It lays on the perfect amount, and then you can kind of buff out the edges, all right? Really awesome brush. I use this for my blush almost exclusively. I'll use different brushes for bronzers and things like that, but I use this guy all the time for my blush. So really, really great brush. Another great one to add to your collection. Okay, next one, and I talked about this a little bit in the video yesterday when we were talking about skin prep. So this is the flat foundation brush. So you can see that. Again, it is synthetic bristles. They are fairly stiff. So this is really nice for laying on liquid products. Because it is flat and because it's stiff like that, it's not going to soak up a ton of product. So I mentioned yesterday that I love to use this brush to apply primers because it's really easy to press that product in to the areas that you want it and then do a light sweep, right? To make a really nice smooth finish. I use this to apply my foundation before I come in with my Sculpting foundation or Sculpting contour and foundation brush. Okay, because it's going to you're going to waste less product. So I'll pick up my foundation, apply it on the face to get the product distributed, and then come in and stipple it in with this guy. This is also really great for concealer. I use this a lot to apply primer to the entire lid if I'm trying to buff a primer in, because it is a perfect size for the eyelid. Okay, so you can kind of see that fits the eyelid really nicely. So it allows you to buff that primer into the eyelid and do that very quickly. Okay, so that is the foundation brush, flat foundation brush. All right. Next one is our Perfecting Concealer Brush. So same kind of hair as the flat foundation brush. It is that synthetic. It's pretty stiff, but this one is round, and then it has a point on it. So this brush was new to me when I started with Mirabella. I had not seen a concealer brush that was this large and shaped this way before, but I absolutely love it. That point really allows you to get up under the eye, get kind of around this contour of the eye here next to the nose, where sometimes we get a little dark and we might need some brightening with some concealer. So it does allow you to get around there. And because it is wider, you're able to work a little bit faster when you're blending your concealer in. Really great for around the nose. This little point also is great if you're coming around the lip line too, if you're wanting to do that quickly. So this was designed for concealer, but a little tip, I use it all the time to contour. So if I'm wanting to get kind of a sharper contour, if I'm doing a true full face contour with a liquid foundation or with a concealer, I will use this to lay the product on, because since it is a little bit smaller, you can get a perfect line, right? And then you can use it to kind of buff that in a little bit. Typically, I'm going to come in with a different brush to do that, but this is really nice, especially for going down the sides of the nose, or even on the jawline, because it controls where you're placing that product a little bit better than some other brushes because it is not as large, right? Okay, so that's just a little tidbit. It is designed for concealer, but I use it all the time if I'm trying to get a little bit of a sharper contour look, okay? All right, next one is the Perfecting Sculpting Dual-Ended Brush. That's this guy. Okay, so it will say on here Serum and Sculpting. So this is fluffy, as you can tell, but it has this like nice taper on it. So this is great for going around the perimeter of the face. A lot of people I know use this for blush as well. This is just an all-around good brush for whatever you want to use it for. It is a little bit more bendy than some. So it's a nice buffing brush. And then this, you can kind of see it has a little bit of a slant. It is round, and then this is very stiff. You can use this as a stippling brush if you want. I personally prefer the Sculpting foundation contour brush because it's rounded like this. I feel like it works the product into the face a little bit better. But I use this often for primers as well as the flat foundation brush. Okay. So it's really great for pushing that primer into the areas you need it. But again, there is no rule to how you have to use these brushes. I think that's one of the super cool things about makeup is that it's all about creativity and finding what works for you. So experiment. You know, if you love this brush for foundation, go for it. But it is that really nice compacted bristles, which is going to give a really nice finish for whatever product you use it for. Okay. And it is dual-ended, which is really nice because you get the two in the one handle. All right, now we're going to talk about some additional eyeshadow brushes. I know I mentioned some in the Pro Set a minute ago. These are some other shapes that really help round out the set well. So the first one is the flat eyeshadow brush. Okay, that's this guy. All right. So this is very similar to the wet dry foundation brush, but it's just a little bit fluffier. And then the bristles are a little bit shorter. So this is really personal preference. These brushes work very, very similar to one another. Because it is wide and flat, it's really great for loading product onto the eyelid. And then it can pick up a lot of product if you need to load a lot on here because those bristles are a little bit shorter and dense. Okay, so it's really personal preference on this. They're very, very similar, just a little bit of a different shape. Okay. Next, eye blender brush. This is one of my absolute favorite eye brushes that we have. It is bendy, so it's not as stiff as some of the other ones. This is perfect for getting in that crease or blending out color on the outer corner of the eye. Because it is so fluffy, that is what's going to give that really nice, smooth finish on your eye makeup and have the colors really just diffuse gently into one another. So you're not going to have a bunch of harsh lines. That's what makes your eye makeup look a little bit more polished. Okay, it's when everything is nice and blended and the colors just lightly transition into one another. And that is how you achieve it, is with this brush. Okay, so really fluffy. It is round like most of them. So yeah, this is a must-have for me. So if you invest in the red set, I definitely recommend adding this guy on. It's just going to up your eyeshadow game. All right, next one is our eyeshadow brush. So pretty simple name, eyeshadow. You can see here, the bristles are slightly domed, but this brush is flat. Okay. This is just an all-around good brush. This is probably a similar shape to something that all of us have used in our lifetime, maybe growing up when you're in junior high or high school and you're just first experimenting with makeup. A lot of brushes that we've seen over the years have been this shape. It's just a classic. It's good for everything. It really is nice for under the brow, the inner corner, just kind of blending things out. But you know, if you're confused on what brushes to buy, this is a good place to start because it really is good for a lot of different things. All right, next one is the small crease brush. So this is a little domed brush. You can see that it is round, but it's teeny tiny compared to some of the other ones we have. This is really great for color detail work. So whether you're applying different colors in the crease or on the outer corner, maybe you're working color into the lash line, this is a really great size for that. And because it is domed, that allows you to apply the color without any harsh lines. Not to mention with it being dense, you can either lay on a little bit of color or a lot of color. The dense brushes allow you to pick up and kind of adjust the amount of color that you want to lay on the skin. So this is really great for smoking out the eye. So another good one to add to your collection. Okay, next one is one of my absolute favorite brushes, and some people laugh at me when I say that because it's this teeny tiny little guy. This is our detail brush. I'll see if you guys can see that a little bit better. So it is flat and it has a slight little taper on it. This is an absolute must for me because it multitasks so well. So acts as a really great concealer brush if you have like a tiny little blemish or a little red spot or something that you're wanting to cover. This is so little bitty that you can really target that and get your concealer or your foundation right on that area. This is awesome for eyeliner as well, especially if you're doing kind of a smudged outliner. Because it's flat, you can really lay it very close to the lash line, work that back and forth, and then create a very nice smoked out liner look with it. And then my favorite thing is that I use it for lips. So I have several of these in my kit because I have some that I kind of reserve to use for concealer and things like that, and then several that I use for lip products. So because it's tapered and because it's stiff, it's really nice to get around the edge of the lips and make that really crisp lip line. Okay. So I love, love, love this. This is the detail brush. And then the last brush that I want to talk about is our Kabuki. If you guys do not have a Kabuki, run out and get one. This guy is fantastic. This is my go-to for our powder foundation, which I'll talk about later this week. It is dense, but it's so soft and fluffy, guys. Really great for buffing around the edge of the face to make sure there's no harsh lines or a line of demarcation, bringing that color down onto the neck. It is just a really awesome, awesome brush. You can do several different things with this. It is great for buffing, like I just mentioned, but you can also use it as a large stipple brush. So you can come in with your setting powder or your powder foundation, and in those areas where maybe you're super oily or you need additional coverage once you put your foundation on, use this guy to stipple that powder on, and you're going to get a gorgeous finish. So Kabuki, really, really great investment. Okay. So that covers all of the brushes that we have to offer. Price wise, I think I mentioned the red set is $96. All of the brushes, aside from the Pro Eye Blender, can be purchased individually, and the price on those range from $16 to $36, which is really very, very reasonable. I'm sure you guys have seen other Pro brushes that are in the $60, $70, $80 range, which is quite expensive sometimes, but for the quality of our brushes, you are really getting a steal because, like I said, they will last you a long time. So since I mentioned that, the longevity of the brushes, I'm going to steer us into talking about our quick brush cleaner. This is called Purify. Let me get up my sheet here. It is $18 retail. This is really great for a quick clean on your brushes, okay? This does not take the place of shampooing, especially with everything that's going on right now in regards to sanitation and maintaining cleanliness in our own personal makeup stash and then in our professional makeup stash. This is a quick clean only. If you are using this at home, if you're a consumer, you're cleaning your brushes at home, it is totally fine to do this daily when you're done. Put your brushes away. You can use them the next day. That is fine. If you are a professional, this should only be used if you are changing color using the same brush on a client. So maybe I'm using my wet dry shadow brush here on a client, right? I've put some color on their lid and I want to use this brush and get a different color. I'm going to use the quick clean, right, to take the one color off of here. It's very fast drying, and then you're going to pick up the new color. Okay, this does not replace shampooing your brushes. The cool thing about it, though, it does have some alcohol in it, so it does help to disinfect. However, you need to check with your state to see if you need to use alcohol after. But let's talk about ingredients on this. Okay, so it does clean, it does break down dirt, it does break down oil, it does take makeup out of the brushes, including liquids and creams, which I think is sometimes hard. So this has alcohol, it has aloe, which is actually a cleaning ingredient as well as a moisturizing ingredient. Same with tangerine, it helps to sanitize, and then this has witch hazel. The other cool thing is that, like I said, it has an aloe, but it also has glycerin. So I think that's always a concern when we are cleaning our brushes, especially if you're a professional and you're disinfecting your brushes all the time. You risk that the bristles are going to feel a little bit dry. This is nice because it has that aloe and that glycerin. So it helps condition the hair of the bristles or of the brush so that it still feels nice and soft after it dries. So the way I like to recommend using this is that you would take your brush, spray it directly on the brush, and then you would have a towel, which I meant to bring one in here and I forgot. Spray the towel heavily, and then you're going to take this and swirl it around on the towel. Okay? And so on the towel, you will see all of the color, makeup, dirt, that kind of stuff coming out. And then you can let it dry. Like I just sprayed this one and rubbed it around and it's almost dry already. So it dries very, very fast. So really nice, quick clean. I definitely recommend if you are a consumer or if you're a pro using our products at home that you invest in the Purify. I know that shampooing brushes can sometimes be a chore, and I think we all forget to do it as often as we're supposed to. So that's where this is a really nice quick clean just to do every day after you're done using your brushes. So I did want to talk about shampooing brushes. We get asked all the time if we have a brush shampoo. We do not have a brush shampoo right now. I get asked what my favorite one is, and it goes, you know, back and forth between a few. I personally like a solid brush shampoo that has a conditioner in it. But you do want to try to wash your brushes every week or two if you're a consumer at home. Obviously, if you're a professional, you are washing them after every use. But it is really important to shampoo those brushes. Like I said, this is really great for a quick clean, but sometimes you really just need to get down and dirty with it and give them a thorough clean. Especially if you notice that you're having like skin issues or something like that, your brushes could be to blame. Also, I get asked all the time about like, hey, I had this favorite brush and this favorite foundation formula, and I used to love it. And all of a sudden, like, I don't like how it's going on my skin. Well, yesterday we talked about the importance of skin prep. So I definitely recommend you going back and watching that video if you've experienced this issue. But the other thing that could be a culprit is that your brushes just aren't clean enough. So they're designed to lay product on the skin very beautifully when they're clean. If your brush gets caked up, if it has excess oil on it, it is not going to perform right. So when you're starting to feel frustrated with your application, definitely wash your brushes, and I bet you will see a huge difference in how your makeup goes on the next time. Okay? All right. So that is our Purify. Again, $18. Quick Clean Brush Cleanser. So the next thing I want to mention is our Flawless Silicone Blender, right? Okay, so for you sponge lovers, this one's for you. I mentioned earlier, sponges aren't super sanitary, and with everything going on right now, that is of huge importance to those of us at home and pro artists. That's where this little guy is super handy. It is silicone, so once you're done using it, you simply wash it with antibacterial soap, and then you're good to go, right? The other super cool thing about this is there's no waste. I think that's one of the downfalls of sponges sometimes, especially if you're using them with a liquid or a cream, is that there's a lot of waste, right? Because the sponge itself soaks up some of that product. This is not going to do that. Obviously, it's silicone. But a few little tips. I will admit, when I was first given one of these, I tried it and I hated it. I didn't understand how to use it. I was frustrated, and so I threw it away. And then someone asked me, oh, how'd you like that silicone blender? I was like, I think I need to try it again. So I got it. I had a little patience, and then now I love it. And so that is something I want to tell you. If you get this silicone blender and you're a little bit frustrated at first, it is probably a simple technique or application technique adjustment that you need to make, and then you will fall in love with it. So a couple tips. If you can see, there is a seam right here on the side. All right, you're going to want to put that toward your hand. So the seam's always going to go toward your hand. Now, the point is really great if you're laying product around the eye, around the nose. I use the wide side if I am covering a large area, like I'm trying to do cheeks or the forehead. with foundation or concealer. So like I said, seam side towards your hand, and then I curve this around my finger, right? So I have my pointer finger right here, and then I curve it around my finger. So it looks like this. And the biggest mistake people make is that they try to do this and smear with it. This is silicone. It's just going to smear it and pick it back up, right? So what you need to do is either press and roll, so this motion here, or tap it into the skin. So just like I mentioned with stippling with your foundation, this is the same concept. You want to push the product into the skin right where you want it to be, okay? So you're pressing or you're rolling or pressing, tapping, okay? In a pinch, I will also use this as a teeny tiny little mixing palette. So I personally mix foundation colors often on myself or on clients. And so sometimes I will pump the foundation right onto the sponge. And then you can even kind of fold it like this to mix it together. Or you can mix it with a brush. But then you have the mixed color directly on this, and you can go straight to the face and it's already mixed. And you don't have to waste, you know, a palette or anything like that. It's a great little tool to mix it on because then you have no waste. Okay. This guy is super affordable. It's $7. So, you know, pick one up. Really great to have in the kit or in your personal makeup stash. All right. Flawless silicone blender. All right. The next thing I'm going to talk about are our wipe out makeup removing wipes. I often get asked why I don't talk about this with skin prep. And the reason is because this is not a replacement for fully cleansing your skin. These are great to start with. They're really great for taking off the majority of your makeup. These are super handy if maybe you get a smudge or you mess up. But this is not a replacement for actually cleansing your skin. You're not going to get the finish you want if you use one of these only, right? But these do a fantastic job of lifting makeup, lifting eye makeup. I use these on my eyes all the time because it's nice to kind of just let it sit there for a second and then gently work that eye makeup off before you fully cleanse. So a couple cool things about this. These are alcohol free and they do have micellar water in them. So the micellar water acts as almost little sponges, right? So they pull dirt, oil, makeup into the micellar, the micelles, and then away from the face. So it's literally pulling it off the face into the cloth. This also has glycerin, which is a humectant, so it's not going to dry out the skin. Same thing for it being alcohol free. It's going to leave your natural lipid barrier intact. And then they're moisturizing. So there's a little bit of shea butter and some vitamin E in here. And then this is a resealable pouch. You can see that. The wipes are in here. And then this just seals back down. Okay, super duper handy. I really recommend anybody keep these on hand. Like I said, just in case you get a little smudge or you mess up. That way you're not having to take everything off. Or keep them in your bathroom as your kind of quick clean before you do your whole skincare routine. Okay? Love, love, love these. These are a definite must in my Pro Kit too. All right. Oh, and these are $12. I didn't mention the price on that. $12 for the wipes. All right. So the last tool product I want to talk about is our Bulletproof. Okay? It's in this really cute kind of aluminum looking bottle. This is a finishing spray, but it does so much more than that as well. So that's why I've lumped it into the tools category, because it's not only something that you can spray on the face and it'll set your makeup, which it totally does, but there are different things you can do with it too. So first, let's talk about ingredients and benefits, and then I'll get into some tips and tricks. So this little spray is fantastic. We do have clinicals on it, and it shows 97% of people said their makeup lasted 12 hours or longer. 92% said that it reduces the look of fine lines. 93% said it instantly secures their makeup, and 86% says it minimizes the look of pores. So this is a mattifying finishing spray. The really nice thing I like about it though, in comparison to other matte finishing sprays on the market, is one, that it's alcohol free, and two, that it's not going to be a chalky matte finish. So it's just enough to take away excess shine and not add additional shine to the skin, right? It feels really good. It is great that it's alcohol free. That is very hard to find in a matte finishing spray. Like I mentioned yesterday, we try to omit drying alcohols from our products when possible, and this is one of them that we were able to do that, and I absolutely love that. This also has peony root in it. Peony root is an anti-inflammatory. It's also an antioxidant, and it has a brightening quality to it. So for those of you that have issues with pigmentation and stuff, you are getting a little bit of a brightening quality from that peony root. It also has niacinamide in it, which helps to brighten the skin. And then the setting ingredient is something called PVP. And that is what almost creates this like netting on top of your makeup so that nothing shifts around and that it stays in place. So really, really does work. I have people that have slept in their makeup, which I don't recommend, but say it happens to you on accident, they wake up the next day and their makeup looks fantastic, and it is due to this finishing spray. So really, really great product. I definitely recommend having this little guy, giving it a spritz when you finish your applications. A couple other things that you can do with this. If you are somebody that is oily, because this has a mattifying quality to it, you can actually do a light spray of this on the face prior to doing your foundation. Okay? So what's going to happen is, just like I mentioned with some of the primers, if you're someone that's oily and you start to get breakthrough shine throughout the day, it's going to hit the mattifying finishing spray first before it reaches the foundation. So it's going to prevent the foundation from breaking up and shifting around, because this is going to help control that oil. A couple things, if you do that little technique with this, you are going to need to stipple your foundation on top of it. So you can't apply this and then buff foundation in. You would need to stipple foundation on top of it. Okay, because it does, you know, kind of create this like matte finish. You won't be able to move a brush properly on top of it if you're buffing. So just stipple. But really, really great little tip to prevent extra oil from coming through. The other thing, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, and I will talk about this again when I get to eyeshadows, is that you can apply all of our eyeshadows wet or dry. Okay? If you use the bulletproof to wet your brush prior to picking up that shadow, and then you stipple that color on the eye, it gives a gorgeous kind of foiled look to the shadow. And because you just use the bulletproof, it is going to stay put, which is fantastic. I use the bulletproof all the time to create liquid liners with our shadows, and then they don't budge, which is awesome. So this is more than a finishing spray, which is why I lumped it into the tools conversation. So I hope you guys like those little tips. It's super useful for many, many things. All right. And this guy's $25. All right. So that is all I have for you on the tools. So just to give you a recap, we covered the brushes. We have the Pro Essential Red Set. We have our Signature Brush Collection. It doesn't come in the red roll. I just put them in here. We have the Purify Brush Cleanser, Wipeout, Flawless Blender, and then the Bulletproof. Okay, so really that is everything you need to do a gorgeous application on yourself or on a client. We have some people on answering questions. I always get on these videos after and answer questions as well. So if you have them, definitely drop them below. I hope you guys learned a little something. Be sure to check the schedule for the additional classes I'm going to be doing over the next couple weeks. You can find that down in the feed on this page. I'm doing something almost every other day until the 20th. So like I said, we're going to be breaking the line up into small segments. And then I'm finishing everything with a sanitation class for pro artists on the 20th. Everybody is free to watch that. Just know that it really is geared toward professional artists and how they need to care for their products and how they need to apply products in a sanitary way to their clients. So I definitely recommend everybody watch. It's handy information for consumers as well especially if you're someone that's ever getting an application done by a pro. Watch the sanitation class and you will know exactly what they should and should not be doing. So anyway, it was great being on again. I hope you guys learned something new. I will be back Friday to do another one of these. So tune in at 1 o'clock Central Time on this page, and I will see you then. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.